It should be possible. We're going to pick up at chapter 20, because there's not a whole lot that happens in elf tales and birthday surprises other than, Ron gets poisoned and he drinks the love potion, or eats the love potion, and the Romilda Vane's chocolate thingies. So chapter 20, Lord Voldemort's request. Harry goes off to Dumbledore's office around, 4:28 or so, maybe 4:25, to meet with Dumbledore for one of his lessons. And Dumbledore asks, so, did you get the memory? The memory he needs. Harry, I asked Professor Slughorn about it in the potion, sir, but he wouldn't give it to me. Dumbledore, I see. And you feel that you have exerted your very best efforts in this matter, do you? You've exercised all of your considerable ingenuity? Now, notice Dumbledore's being nice there. Because where do we see Harry show considerable ingenuity? Usually when he has a wand in his hand and he's being attacked. Other than that, not a lot of ingenuity. That you have left no depth of cunning unplumbed in your quest to retrieve the memory. Notice, depth of cunning. Who would that really describe better? Hermione, okay. Cunning implies what house? Slytherins. Okay. Harry, well, long pause. Ron swallowed the love potion, and I thought maybe if I got Slughorn in a good enough mood, and did that work? Well, no, because Ron got poisoned, and we had to, which made you forget. He goes, I understand, but Harry, I hoped you would have returned to the task I set you. I thought I made it clear to you how very important. Does he make it clear how important this memory is?
No, really.
He said you'll know when you find out. Okay? Harry, I'll do it, sir. I'll get it from him. This is, around, 4:27, 4:28 or so. I'll do it. I'll get it from him. Okay, so Dumbledore says, all right, Harry. So far, I've shown you reasonably firm sources of fact for my deductions as to what Voldemort did until the age of 17. Harry nods. Now we go even murkier and stranger. If it was difficult to find evidence about the boy Riddle, it's been almost impossible to find anything about him, about the man Voldemort. I doubt whether there is a soul alive, apart from himself, who could give us a full account of his life since he left Hogwarts. Okay? So he talks about Voldemort reaching his 7th year, leaves school, and people have what kind of expectations for him? Great. Head boy, prefect, winner of the special award services, all that kind of stuff. People suggest he joined the Ministry of Magic, and he went to work for Borgin and Burke's. In other words, the local pawn shop. Well, not quite local, but you get the idea. Yeah, it's a dark art, but it's a pawn shop. Yeah. That's what Borgin and Burke's is. People take stuff in there to get money for it. Okay? Harry, what? Borgin and Burke's. I think you'll see what attractions held him. But first he asked Dippet if he could stay here as a teacher. Harry's like, why? There had to, he implies there had to be something more. Dumbledore, lots of reasons. Voldemort was, I believe, more attached to this school than he's ever been to a person. This is page 431. Hogwarts was where he had been happiest, the first and only place he had felt at home. Jump to nearly the end of book 7. Harry is making his way to the Forbidden Forest, and he stops. He hears Ginny comfort a younger student. And Harry thinks about himself and Snape and Voldemort calling themselves the Lost Boys. This is where he had been happiest, Harry thinks, at that point. It's where Voldemort had been happiest. It's where Snape had been happiest. Harry felt slightly uncomfortable at these words, for this was exactly how he felt about Hogwarts too. In other words, another point of contact. Another similarity between himself and Voldemort. He doesn't like these. Secondly, Castle's a stronghold of ancient magic. Undoubtedly, Voldemort had penetrated many more of its secrets than most of the students who passed through, but he probably thought more to be figured out. Third, as teacher, he would have great power and influence over young witches and wizards. Perhaps he had gained the idea from Slughorn. I mean, now Slughorn has the Slug Club. It's suggested he had it way back then. This is in the 1940s when Slughorn, was doing this. The teacher with whom he was on best terms, who demonstrated how influential a role a teacher can play, etc. Harry, but he didn't get the job? No. Dippet told him he's too young at 18, but invited him to reapply in a few years, if he still wished to teach. Yes?
It's oddly strange that all of these characters are so old.
All of which characters?
Well, like Dumbledore and Slughorn and McGonagall.
Well, I think it's implied witches and wizards live longer than average humans. Unless something cuts them short. Okay? But because, there does seem to be a gap between, those and the others. Except for Ben's. Because I think it's implied Ben's died a long time ago. Probably before Dumbledore was even there. Okay? It's kind of implied Flitwick's really old. But he's also not all human either. And I don't mean, part wizard. I mean, it's also part goblin. It's suggested. Anyways, Dumbledore goes on. Says, I wasn't happy. So I advised Dippet against it, etc., etc. So Voldemort goes off to Borgin and Burke's. So they go into the pensive. And we see, I always pronounce her name wrong, Hepzibah Smith come in. And she shows young Tom some things. And what happens? To cut to the chase there. What does he do to Hokey?
He obliterates her memory. Makes her think that she's the one who poisoned her master.
Plants a memory in Hokey's mind that Hokey poisoned Hepzibah Smith. Why does he do that? So he can steal the cup. Okay, she's the one with Hufflepuff's cup and the necklace. Okay, so I'm going to skip a bunch. They come back out, and this is around 4:35 or so. Dumbledore says Hepzibah Smith died 2 days after that little scene. Hokey the house elf convicted. No way. Okay. Hokey confessed, and Dumbledore explains. And Dumbledore says the ministry was predisposed to suspect Hokey, and Harry finishes the sentence. Notice he's starting to take after some of Dumbledore's habits because she was a house elf. In other words, the ministry suspected her because she wasn't one of us. And he thinks of Spew, Dumbledore. Yep, exactly. So, he says, Harry, let's pause and let's take stock of this story. Let's take it apart. Look at some particulars. Voldemort had committed another murder. Whether it was his first since he killed the Riddles, I don't know. I think it was. This time, as you have seen, he killed not for revenge, but for gain. Before, it was pure what? It was hatred, man. It was hatred. Revenge. Okay. This, he wanted something out of it. What else? He wanted the 2 fabulous trophies that poor besotted old woman showed him, just as he had once robbed the other children at his orphanage. Just as he had stolen his Uncle Morphin's ring, so he ran off now with Hepzibah's cup and locket. So he now has something of Helga Hufflepuff, and he has 2 things of Salazar Slytherin. Harry, but he was risking throwing away his job just for those. Okay, what kind of job? Beneath him. Dumbledore. Mad to you, perhaps, but not to Voldemort. I hope you'll understand in due course what those objects meant to him. He said, but you gotta admit, he saw the locket, and what did he think?
That's mine.
That's mine. It's got my initials on it, Not really, but close to, if he goes back far enough. Harry, well, yeah, I can understand the cup, but the locket, but why take the cup? Belonged to another of Hogwarts founders. I think he still felt a great pull towards the school. And he says, there's other reasons I'll explain in due course. Now, one more thing. One more memory. Harry, whose is it? Mine. So, we see Dumbledore now sitting behind the desk, and in comes Voldemort. Features were not those Harry had seen emerge from the Great Stone Cauldron almost 2 years before. They were not as snake-like. The eyes were not yet scarlet. They were, the face not yet mask-like. And yet he was no longer handsome Tom Riddle. So, no longer handsome Tom Riddle, no longer the 15-year-old that came out of the diary, but not the abomination that came out of the cauldron. So, where is he? Between those. Notice the description. The eyes were not as snake-like. But it's starting. In other words, they're kind of snake-like, but they're not definitely like a snake's like they were out of the cauldron. Okay? Eyes were not yet scarlet, but the implication is, but they're turning red. Okay? It was as though his features had been burned and blurred, waxy, oddly distorted. The whites of the eyes now had a permanently bloody look, though the pupils were not yet the slits Harry knew they would become. Okay? Good evening, Tom. Won't you sit down? Notice, Tom. At least he doesn't say, good to see you, Tommy. That little diminutive ending just, Voldemort, thank you. I heard that you'd become headmaster. Worthy choice. Glad you approve. Thirsty? That would be welcome. I've come a long way. Dumbledore goes over. Notice Dumbledore doesn't just, wave his wand and have the goblets banging him on the head like he does with the Dursleys. So to what do I owe the pleasure? That is, why are you here? He sips his wine and says, I turned too many pages. They don't call me Tom, and who's the they? Is it the Death Eaters? Anybody, nobody calls me Tom anymore. These days I am known as, and Dumbledore cuts him off. Why? He knows what he's called. Why else? What has he just done?
It's a power play.
It's a power play. He has just asserted control over this conversation.
People don't tell me that.
Yeah, it's my office, bud. I know what you're known as. But to me, I'm afraid you will always be. And I wish she had put it in there. Little. Tom Riddle. I wish she had put the little part. Just to really demean him. Because that's what he's doing. You will always be Tom Riddle. He doesn't say, you will always be that 11-year-old kid. But that's implied there. It's implied. I see you at 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and 16. And I see you young and, not pure. He's not pure at 11. But he's not snake-like as he is here, or as he even becomes a little bit after he kills his parents. Or his father and grandparents. Okay? It is one of the irritating things about old teachers, I'm afraid. And this is why I think the little would work. That they never quite forget their charges' youthful beginnings. He's essentially said, I remember you when you were essentially, Okay, metaphorically. In diapers. Okay, now, with somebody with Voldemort's hang-ups, what do you think that little speech has got to do? He's just sitting there mad. He raised his glass as though toasting Voldemort, whose face remained expressionless. Why? Because only fools wear their hearts on their sleeves, as Snape said. He's what? He's in control of himself. Okay? Remember, that was a little lesson Harry had to learn. He's going to have to relearn it. Hasn't learned it well enough. Nevertheless, Harry felt the atmosphere in the room change subtly. Dumbledore's refusal, and this always strikes me every time I read it. I'll ask you why in a second. Dumbledore's refusal to use Voldemort's chosen name was a refusal to allow Voldemort to dictate the terms of the meeting, and Harry could tell that Voldemort took it as such. Any guesses as to why that description, to me at least, is bothering or troubling or out of character? What does that show us on Harry's part?
Sees the bigger picture. That he hasn't.
Keep going. Yeah, he sees the bigger picture, but how?
To extrapolate.
He's showing a level of kind of maturity and awareness there that has Harry shown that before? And I don't simply mean, he's growing up. Maybe it is he's growing up. But even after this, he's not going to show that kind of...
Mental agility.
Yeah, good way of putting it. Okay. It seems like Rowling is putting too much into Harry's interpersonal skills here. Okay.
Almost like she's trying to over-emphasize.
Yeah, and I don't think it fits him at this point. It won't really even fit him in Book 7, because there's going to be some things in Book 7 that if this Harry had been there, some of the things might not have happened. Okay? I'm surprised you remained here so long, says Voldemort. I wondered why wizards such as yourself never wished to leave school. What does he mean, a wizard such as yourself?
You could have been great. You could have
Just
gone out.
Stroke his ego.
Okay? But what else does he mean? Yeah. You are a powerful wizard. Why not go get more power? Dumbledore, well, to a wizard such as myself, in other words, you have no idea what motivates me. You think you do. In other words, Tom Riddle is making an assertion there about Dumbledore, and Dumbledore has just denied everything about that assertion. To wizards such as myself, there can be nothing more important than passing on ancient skills, helping hone young minds. I don't want power. He wants to do what? He wants to bring power out of others. He wants them to come into their own, to become what they are meant to be and such. You once saw the attraction of teaching. To get to the point. I see it still. I have merely wondered why you, who is so often asked for advice by the ministry and who's twice, I think, been offered the post of minister. Notice, offered, not elected. It's like it's a benefit given. Who offered it? Within the world she creates, who offers the post of minister? Is it the person in charge of magical law enforcement? Is it the chief mugwump of the Wisengamot? We're never told. Is it a whole bunch of people all to get together and say, hey, we think you are? But if it's offered, somebody's got to be doing the offering. Is it the previous minister of magic coming up and saying, I just can't do it. I really think you ought to? Dumbledore.
Then that would have worked because Fudge didn't come up to Scrimmager and say, hey, I can't do this.
True. Fudge was sacked.
Well, they're implying that
the exception? Because nowhere else do they say that somebody was offered the position. Everywhere else it's implied that they were elected.
Is it even implied? Are we told how Scrimgeour becomes? We're told Fudge is sacked. What is that? What must that mean?
Some fire.
There's got to be somebody or somebody above him. But he is the president. I mean, that's what the Minister for Magic is, essentially. Anyways, so, well, Dumbledore goes, well, I'm actually feeling 3 times. Notice, a little stroking of the ego there. Well, 3 times, not 2. I mean, if you're going to, let's get the details right. But the ministry never attracted me as a career. True? Even in Book 7? Yeah, it's true. I mean, Book 7, he and Gellert Grindelwald, they're what? They're not talking about the ministry when they talk about seizing power. Well, I mean, they kind of are, but it's kind of power what? Over the ministry. Okay? Not giving away too much. Especially if you've seen the, we'll talk about them, trailers for the next
I was gonna say.
stupid movie. But the ministry never attracted me as a career for the next Newt Scamander Fantastic Beasts movie. Again, something we have in common, I think. That is, you don't want to work for the ministry. People put you up for a job in the ministry. Why didn't you want to work in the ministry? Voldemort inclined his head. In other words, got me on that one. I have returned, he says, later perhaps than Professor Dippet expected, but I have returned, nevertheless, to request again what he once told me I was too young to have. I want to teach. I think you must know I have seen and done much since I left this place. In other words, whoa, could I show your students some cool stuff? I can show and tell your students things they can gain from no other wizard. No other wizard obviously means what? Not even you. Now, that's a pretty audacious statement, right? Yeah, I know that you have seen and done much since leaving us. Rumors of your doings have reached your old school, Tom. I should be very sorry to believe half of them. Okay, what's the problem with rumors? All rumors. How often are rumors correct? They're not 100% true. Okay? Voldemort. He takes that comment about rumors, and Dumbledore is really be sorry to believe half of them. Greatness inspires envy. Envy engenders spite. Spite spawns lies. In other words, what you've heard are what? Lies. Lies told by who? Those who are full of spite. What prompted the spite? People who are envious. What prompted the envy? My greatness. You haven't heard about my greatness, though. Dumbledore. Huh. Okay. You call it greatness? What you've been doing? Certainly. I have experimented. I have pushed the boundaries of magic further, perhaps, than they have ever been pushed. Some kinds of magic. Of some. Of others you remain, forgive me, woefully ignorant. Okay? What kind of magic is Riddle talking about? Voldemort talking about? Is it only dark magic? It's spells, it's potions, it's charms. It's that kind of magic, right? It's the stuff you do with a wand. Okay? What kind of magic is Dumbledore talking about? Love.
Pretty much the connection.
Voldemort smiles. It was a taut leer. That's not a smile. It's a grimace. An evil thing, more threatening than a look of rage. Okay, now from whose perspective are we being told that? Some omniscient outside the picture narrators? That's what Harry's kind of experiencing. He sees that, and I think Harry kind of does this. He backs up a little bit because this is like evil incarnate. The old argument. What is an argument? It's a debate. A debate always has what?
Two sides.
Two sides. You get the picture, you get the impression they've had this discussion before. Personally, just the two of them. Nothing I have seen in the world has supported your famous pronouncement that love is more powerful than my kind of magic, Dumbledore. Notice, Voldemort admits he knows exactly what Dumbledore's talking about. That love is magic. Okay? What does that mean? You can do things with it, so to speak. I don't mean, that kind of thing. Okay.
Kind of, almost similar to an Imperious curse. Like you can kind of sometimes get people.
Okay, I don't even mean that. Do things in that way. Okay? Notice, where does Voldemort's kind of magic come from? Wand, which does what? Channels what's in here. In other words, you got to have the power in here.
She's implying that there's certain things that only love can empower you.
Love also comes from in here. Okay? What's it take to overcome an Imperious curse? Character. How does character develop? By overcoming adversity. How do you do that? That's love. That's love. Hating your enemies, that kind of stuff. Dumbledore. Perhaps you've been looking in the wrong places. Notice, what did Voldemort say? Nothing I have seen in the world has supported your famous pronouncements, more than one, that love is more powerful than my kind of magic. Has he been looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in all the wrong faces? I mean, that could be what he means. He's been looking for it where?
Everywhere but inside.
Out there, exactly. He hasn't looked for it inside. He hasn't, Jesus tells his disciples, the kingdom of heaven is where? There? No. In here. Okay? Voldemort's gone outside looking for it. Do the Death Eaters love him? Well, one does in a weird, twisted, sycophantic kind of way. Do the others? They fear him, they serve him. Okay? You've been looking, Dumbledore says, in all the wrong places. So where hasn't he been looking? Inside, where else?
In others.
In others? Has Voldemort, a.k.a. Tom Riddle, ever experienced love? I don't mean felt love for others. Has he ever been the recipient of love? Think about it.
I would say, with Dumbledore being a professor of his, at some point he has experienced some level of love.
Okay. Keep going with that.
So probably what the other teachers showed him was more admiration than.
Like Slughorn, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's like, this kid's top of the class. I'm going to, Slug Club, I'm going to hitch my wagon to him, so to speak. Okay. But go back to Dumbledore. How else did Dumbledore possibly show him love? Discipline? How else? I know. Children especially, they don't think of discipline as being love. It is. Why? It's designed to protect. Okay? What else? Who else? What did Merope do before she died? Did she just run off to the forest and die with her son there? She brought him to an orphanage. Okay, might not be great, but it's some. She carried him to term. That's, in our society, I would say, that's definitely an act of love. What else? Did Dumbledore have to show up on his 11th birthday? No, he didn't. But he does. Did he have to offer him a place even after what he discovers about him? I mean, what does he discover? This is Dudley with power. He's sick. He's sick. He's ill. He abuses people. So he says, you can come, but you got to do what? You know, you got to repay, got to give the things back, and apologize. That is an aspect of love. What's he making him do and making him apologize?
Show humility.
Show some humility. Okay? What else? Even when Tom is there, does Dumbledore show love? Does Dumbledore ever tell Armando Dippet what he suspects about Tom Riddle? Nope. It's not implied he tells anybody. He keeps it to himself. But he also does what? Keeps a very close eye on him. Okay? Even now he's keeping a close eye on him. Out of fear? Probably some. Okay? In other words, I think partly what Dumbledore is saying there is, Tom, you've never looked properly. You've never seen properly. It's right here, Tom. It's right here. You were offered a place here. Okay? That was an act of love. Well, then what better place to start my fresh researches than here at Hogwarts? Notice, how is he thinking about it? How is he thinking about love?
Something you can learn about.
It's an academic discipline. Well, why might be one of the reasons he thinks of it that way? Because there's a room at the Ministry of Magic, what? Where these kinds of things are studied. Really? How do you study love? But the door, we're told, is constantly locked. So how can you study it? How do you study? Bingo. How do you study? If you study for this class or any other class, how do you do it? You read the material, you go over your notes, you think about it. Do you learn how to love by thinking about it? It's like learning that, it's like saying you learn how to drive a car by thinking about it. It's the old, the Music Man think method. I'm going to learn how to play the trombone by thinking I can play the trombone. And then I'm going to play the trombone. No, you're going to make a hell of a lot of noise. If all you do is think about love, you're never what? Actually loving. What is love? Notice we're not told that here. It's just Dumbledore says, oh, love, man, it's the greatest thing in the world. What is it? Is it romance? Is it what Ginny apparently thinks love is? Because, Dean Thomas and Zacharias Fundy and whoever else before she, Harry. Is it Ron and Romilda Vane? Is it Ron and Lavender? No. What is it?
Caring for others, putting them before yourself.
It's that idea of humility you mentioned. It's putting somebody else's needs, wants, desires, what? Above yours. What were Tom Riddle's, 11-year-old Tom Riddle's, needs, wants, desires? Okay. Take other people's stuff, etc. That's superficial, though. It's to find himself. He knew he was different. He knew he was special. He could find himself at Hogwarts, is to put that. So did Dumbledore become an enabler? Is he merely one who enabled Tom Riddle to become the abuser he was born to be, so to speak? No. Okay. What about some other aspects? Okay. What did Merope give him? Life. She, what? Dumbledore implies. She died so he might live. That links her to whom? Lily. Okay. But he doesn't think of love that way. How does he think of love? It's all up here. Love is, you take out a yellow pad and you write down pros and cons. I'm in love with this person because. And if the pros outweigh the cons, therefore I will propose or get married. Or, that how love works in the romantic? No. Okay, that's going to crash and burn really fast. Okay? So, what better place for me to learn about love than here at Hogwarts? Will you let me return? Will you let me share my knowledge with your students? I place myself, my talents at your disposal. I am yours to command. Well, that's humility, right? I bow down before you, O master. Why? Because I know an awful lot, and you can use. That's not really what Dumbledore's talking about. So what will become of those you command? Your Death Eaters. My friends. Well, they'll carry on without me. Even those that are at the Hogshead right now? Damn. I'm glad to hear you consider them friends. I was under the impression that they are more in the order of servants. You are mistaken. So if I go to the Hogshead tonight, I would not find a group of them. Not Rosier, Mulciber, Dolohov, awaiting your return. Devoted friends indeed. You are omniscient as ever. In other words, how do you always know? No, just friendly with the local barman. In other words, I've got my spies. That's if that doesn't give you a little chill about Dumbledore, it should. It means, yeah, I've got my tentacles are out, and they're feeling things. They're taking in information. Dumbledore sits down at glass and says, let's be honest, what are you really here for? You don't want to teach. I do. I want to very much. No, you want to come back here, yes. But you don't want to teach. What are you after, Tom? Why not try an open request for once? That question gets paralleled at the end of Book 7 by Dumbledore's man through and through. Harry Potter asks him, why not try for some remorse? I've seen the real you. Giving you a last chance here. Well, if you do not want, of course I don't want to give you a job. Of course I'm not going to put you in charge of students. It'd be like, putting John Wayne Gacy in charge of a bunch of 8-year-old boys. Or Ted Bundy in charge of a bunch of 18-year-old girls. No, ain't going to happen. And I don't expect you expected me to. But you came here for a reason. What is it? He's trying to get him to do what? For once. Be honest. Open up. Because what happens when you open up? You become vulnerable. Is your final word, Dumbledore? It is. Then we have nothing more to say each other. In other words, next time we meet, it's on the battlefield. Dumbledore, no, nothing. And he ought to say this with a sigh. I haven't seen the film. I probably slept through this part. Okay. The time is long gone when I could frighten you with a burning wardrobe and force you to make repayment for your crimes. But I wish I could, Tom. Is Dumbledore saying I don't have the power to do those things? He doesn't have the authority to do it. He did when he was only 11. Now, is Dumbledore more powerful magically than Voldemort? What did we see at the end of Book 5?
Dumbledore kind of schooled him.
Phew. You don't mess with Dumbledore. Okay? I think he does have more power. And if he wanted to, he could, do the proverbial burning wardrobe. Would it scare him? No. No, it wouldn't. So he says, if I could, yeah, I would. Okay? So, Voldemort leaves. Harry, why'd he come back? Come on, tell me. Did you ever find out? I got ideas. Get the memory, Harry. Until you get the memory. So, chapter 21. The ennoble room. We're going to skip a bunch. Skip a whole bunch. After the burial, Aragog dies. And we find out. Harry goes down with Hagrid and Slughorn, takes the Felix Felicis with him, gets Hagrid good and drunk, gets Slughorn a bit drunk too. Notice how they bury Aragog. Somewhere around 483, there, said Slughorn, waving his wand so that the huge pile of earth rose up and fell with a muffled sort of crash onto the dead spider, forming a smooth mound. In other words, that's it. Why? Why do I think this is important? Because, yeah, without naming names, because we're going to see a similar. No, we're not. It's not similar. We're going to see a death of another magical creature, and it's going to be handled entirely differently. Okay? So, how does Harry get the memory? How else? Is it merely the good luck charm?
No, he's trying to make Slughorn feel like he needs to give it because he said that his mother died for him to save him.
Do it for Lily and for Lily's son. Dumbledore needs information. The last couple pages. I need information. I'm the chosen one. Notice, pulls out all the stops.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the Messiah. Help me, Obi-Wan.
No.
Didn't he also get him so drunk that he wouldn't remember?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both drunk. I mean, he and Hagrid are
The alcohol.
Well, he felt that
3 sheets to the wind, He knew he was safe. Felix was telling him Slughorn would remember nothing of this in the morning. I'm the chosen one. I have to kill him. I need them. You are the chosen one? Of course I am. But then you're asking a great deal. You don't want to get rid of the wizard who killed Lily? Harry, you're scared he'll find out? Be brave like my mother. Yeah, but his mother's what? Yeah. Be brave and be dead, but like my mother, if word gets out. So, Harry, you cancel out anything you did by giving me the memory. What's he saying to Slughorn? Bingo. He's offering him redemption. Why has Slughorn not shared the memory before?
Convicts him.
It looks pretty bad on him. He essentially gave Voldemort what? The weapons he needed to become what he is. Yeah, what he was. He gave him the weapon. Oh, so that's how the Horcrux works. And he goes and starts splitting himself, So Harry runs up to Dumbledore, gives him the memory. We see what happens, and what do we hear? We've got to finish this no matter what. Slughorn tells Tom Riddle, 496 and following, about the Horcrux and such. And Slughorn then says, you got to understand, Tom, the soul is supposed to remain intact and whole. Notice, by the way, one of the things, Rowling is just presuming or assuming that her readers will accept what? There is a thing called the soul. Okay? That there is something that goes on after death. It doesn't just and disappear. Okay? It's supposed to remain intact and whole. Splitting it is an act of violation. It is against nature. It is a violation of nature. Yeah, but how do you do it? Telling us Tom Riddle's like, yeah, to hell with nature. How do you do it? Well, an act of evil, the supreme act of evil by committing murder. Why is murder the supreme act of evil? No. I mean, yeah, that's true, we find out. You're taking from somebody else what? Everything. You're taking away their nature, first of all. You're taking away their soul by killing them. You're not killing the soul, but it's no longer around. Unless they were afraid of death, in which case they become, near the end of its neck. Okay? The wizard intent upon creating a Horcrux would use the damage to his advantage. He would encase the torn portion. Yeah, but how? Well, there's a spell. I don't know how. Okay? So, they keep talking, and Tom Riddle says, yeah, but if you could do it once, wouldn't it be best, 7? Because, it's a perfect magical. He's like, what the hell are you thinking? It's bad enough to think of killing once. Okay? So, Dumbledore pulls him out and says, around 497 or so, as far as I know, as far as I am sure as Voldemort knew, no wizard had ever done more than tear his soul in two. Tear his soul in two. What does that mean? Two parts, killed somebody, murdered. What? No wizard had ever, prior to this, murdered anybody else? Not even Salazar Slytherin? What kind of wimp was he? Yeah, go out there and prove yourself. And yet, after Voldemort, what do we see? Peter Pettigrew does what?
Killed 9 muggles.
13. Isn't it 13 muggles Peter Pettigrew killed? He didn't make Horcruxes out of, that, but what does that imply about him? He has split his soul into 13 pieces. Is it any wonder he lives as a rat for 12 years after that? And looks awful ratty when he even is in his human form. Okay? So, they start talking and Harry figures out. The diary, it was a Horcrux. One down. Harry, I still don't understand, he says, how it works. So Dumbledore kind of explains. When you told me, when Voldemort came back, that Voldemort said, and Dumbledore plays the recording, I who have gone further than anybody along the path that leads to immortality. He says, I thought then what he was referring to. He's talking about Horcruxes, Harry, and not just one. Harry, so he's made himself impossible to kill by murdering other people. What's going through Harry's mind? How am I going to kill him? Prophecy, Harry, next page. This is around 500 or so. He made 7 Horcruxes? Because Dumbledore just says, yes, I think the idea of a 7-part soul would greatly appeal to Lord Voldemort. Harry, he made 7, but they could be anywhere. I'm glad you're starting to see how difficult this is, Harry. No, he didn't make 7, he made 6. 7th part of his soul, however maimed, resides within his regenerated body. Is Dumbledore right or wrong? Let's go through them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th is in Voldemort's, Dumbledore says, body. So, what are they?
The locket.
Locket, diary,
The
ring,
The cup.
cup,
The lost item.
diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw. I'm going to give it away.
Snake.
Yeah, Nagini.
And Nagini.
And then there's one more.
And then there's one more. He did make 7. But in making 7, how many did he actually make? Because there's one more.
And technically,
How much have you read?
Don't
It's
put
okay.
it down.
It's
Don't
okay.
put it down. Don't
And
Put it
bother.
down.
technically,
But it needs to know it's Neville.
technically, that would make his soul even smaller, further and further going on. So the first one that he made would have the largest part.
Well, yeah.
I was thinking about that too. I'm like, actually.
But it's also, if the number 7 is, the most magically powerful and perfect, then what are the numbers 6 and 8 and 5 and 4 and 3? They're not. In other words, they're almost the exact opposite. By doing the 8th one, he really screwed up. In a sense, he negated the whole purpose, because in doing the 8th one, what did that kind of start? The cascading ripple of the decomposition of himself.
Do you think the 7 has anything to do with the 7 days that God created the universe?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's a number that goes thousands of years back in Western and Eastern cultures as being a perfect. 1, 3, 7, 10 are very significant numbers in numerology. Okay, so Dumbledore says no. The last piece, the part that has to be killed, okay, is the piece that lives in his body. Now, we got to get rid of all these others. Then he can be killed. Okay. He says, "Oh, by the way, Harry, I killed one too. So now there's only 4 to find." Okay. You have the ring, Harry. It was Marvolo's ring. Okay. He says, I kind of figured out, if I lost my hand, it was worth that. However, a withered hand does not seem an unreasonable exchange for a 7th of Voldemort's soul. The ring is no longer a Horcrux. What is Dumbledore saying there? He sacrificed his... Which hand is it, by the way? It's his wand hand. Okay? Beginning of the novel, when Snape tells Bellatrix and Narcissa, I happen to know the Dumbledore was seriously injured in his battle with Voldemort. Lying. He's injured, yes, but not from that.
Which was it that had the pebble coat? The ring or the lock?
It was the ring.
Yeah, the locket had the S.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
Which one, whenever he came out of the cauldron, that's what it's called. Which one did they use to bring him back?
It was the one that was still in his body. You can't, his body could not be killed because of those Horcruxes.
Yes.
So, you can kill those things. If you get those things before you get to the body, then the body can die. But if you're trying to kill the body,
You can't kill the body until those are dead.
yeah. So that piece of the soul is still around. So, it
So
was
that didn't destroy.
right. That
the
didn't
soul.
negate a different.
But that's
Horcrux.
how he was still able to exist as something. It was
That's
that's
how
how
Even, the thing on the back of Quirrell's head, and then later on as the baby-like thing. Yeah, that's why Hermione's going to say in the next book, she's going to explain Horcruxes to Ron and Harry kind of after getting the books out of Dumbledore's army. And she says, Ron, I could run you through with a sword. It wouldn't hurt your soul at all. And he's like, gee, thanks. I'm sure I'd feel good about that. She goes, no, you don't understand. If you were a Horcrux and I had the thing to destroy the Horcrux, it would kill that part of the soul. So that part of the soul would be dead, right? So then she goes on and explains, but there's a way to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, okay? Which we'll talk about when we get there. So, Dumbledore talks about the trophies, etc. Harry starts to put 2 and 3 and 4 together, Locket, Hufflepuff's cup, etc. Dumbledore says, on that page where they're talking about the Locket and such, 503 or so, I am confident, however, the only known relic of Gryffindor remains safe. Notice, the only known relic, that means one. What one is he talking about?
The sword.
The sword. It's not the only known relic.
Right.
The head.
The sorting hat's another one. Where are they both kept?
In
Dumbledore's office, okay? But seems to me that's a pretty big, because the Sorting Hat says, Gryffindor whipped me off his head. I mean, that was pretty closely connected with Gryffindor, okay? So, Dumbledore says the sixth Horcrux, he thinks is Nagini, etc., etc. Okay? And then he says, and I'm sure he was intending to make his final Horcrux with your death. But he failed. Okay? Harry, so Diary's gone, Ring's gone. Cup, Locket, Snake, all intact. You think there might be a Horcrux that was once? Yes. Okay. Does he feel anything when a Horcrux is killed? Can he feel? He goes, I don't think so. But didn't make him happy when he came back and Lucius said, sorry about the diary. So if all the Horcruxes are destroyed, he can be killed. Dumbledore, yes. With those all dead, he'll be what? A mortal man. Notice, these, he thinks, did what? Made him immortal. What did Voldemort apparently not realize about the nature of the soul before this? It is immortal. But what does he want? He wants this to be immortal. Okay? It will take uncommon skill and power to kill a wizard like Voldemort. Harry, I haven't got him. I haven't got uncommon skill and power. Yes, you do. You have a power. Oh, don't tell me about love again. I know, I can love. Yes, Harry, you can love. And he goes on and says, which, given everything you've experienced, is pretty important. Okay? How important is it into Book 7? So when the prophecy says, it means love. Feeling a little let down. Why? I think Harry has in his mind, so what am I going to do? I'm going to go give him a big hug, tell him it's okay, buy him a birthday cake, Yes, just love, Harry. But the prophecy is only significant because of what Voldemort did. Harry, it doesn't matter. What's it still mean? 2 walk in, 1 walks out. But you said one of us would have to kill the other. He says, Harry, only because Voldemort made an error. If he had never murdered your father, would he have imparted in you a furious desire for revenge? And that is what the films are all about. The films are all about Harry Potter's revenge. He gets Voldemort, and he dies, And Harry lives happily ever after until you go see the cursed child. Is it about revenge? Are the books about revenge? No, they aren't. They're about almost the exact opposite of revenge. Okay? Harry, but notice, how much of Dumbledore is he listening to? Whoosh! Or in one and out the other. By attempting to kill you, Voldemort himself singled out the remarkable person who sits here in front of me, gave him the tools for the job. What do you mean he gave me the tools for the job? He will what? He will mark that person out as his equal. He says, Harry, think about it. Despite everything that's happened to you, despite your privileged insight into Voldemort's world, as you can see from his perspective, what? You've never been tempted. You've never shown even the slightest desire to become one of his followers. Of course I haven't. He killed my mom and dad. You're protected in short by your ability to love. Love. The only protection that can possibly work against the lure of power like Voldemort's. That's why he does what he does at the end of Book 7. It's not because he reasons it all through. Okay? He says, despite everything you've endured, all the temptation, all the suffering, you remain pure of heart, just as you were at the age of 11. All right? Harry, yeah, but it all comes down to the same thing. I mean, I've got to try kill, or Dumbledore, got to? Thought experiment, Harry. let's say not because of prophecy, because you yourself will never rest until you've tried. We both know it. Imagine, please. Imagine you'd never heard the prophecy. What would you want to do? I'd want to finish him. I'd want him finished. And I'd want to do it. Of course you would. Why? For the same reason he puts his arm out to stop Malfoy. To protect others. That's it. Whether he'd heard the prophecy, because he hadn't heard the prophecy then. Harry's like, okay. And Dumbledore goes on, but Harry, even though the prophecy doesn't mean anything for you, for Voldemort, it means everything. He will continue to hunt you, which makes it certain, really, that one of us has got to kill the other. Yeah, that's it. Either he kills you or you kill him. And finally, Harry understands what that really means. And Rowling gives us this description. It was, he thought, the difference between being dragged into the arena to face a battle to the death and walking into the arena with your head held high. Some people perhaps would say there was little to choose between the two ways. But Dumbledore knew, and so do I, thought Harry, with a rush of fierce pride, and so did my parents. There is all the difference in the world. Why does she come up with that imagery of walking into an arena or being dragged, kicking and screaming into an arena?
Accepting death.
How are you going to face death? How are you going to die? Well?
Okay. Why arena?
Because life is a battle.
Once you're in there, there's no getting out.
Gladiator type.
Bingo! That's exactly it. She is referring to, she is alluding to the late Roman practice, or the Roman practice of what? Gladiators, okay? And the accounts we have of Christians from the early church going into the arena. Some of them literally walking in unchained, accepting what is about to happen, and others being dragged kicking and screaming. Notice, for Harry, it's what? The difference between walking with head held high and facing it. What did he do at the end of book 4? He got up and stood out from behind that tombstone. Why? He wasn't going to be killed cowering. He was already doing it there, unaware of what he was doing. Okay? Now he realizes this is how it is. This is telling us what about him? He's not merely headless Nick. He's not afraid to die. He doesn't need the Elder Wand. He's already become the master of death. Right there. Why? Not afraid to die. It's like those 3 kids at Parkland, who shielded others with their own bodies. They weren't afraid to die. He took on what was coming. Willingly. He's going to do the same thing. So the rest of this novel is merely the unraveling. So how does it unravel? Well, we see Harry use Sectum Sempra, not knowing what it is, and they feel really, really bad. Okay? We have Dumbledore take Harry off to the cave. Okay? He makes Harry promise, do what I tell you to do, no matter what. Harry does. We see Dumbledore drink the potion. What happens once he starts drinking the potion to Dumbledore? He's dying. The potion isn't just water. It's poison. It's like he starts drinking it, turn the hourglass. Because tick-tock. Well, what else is going tick-tock in Dumbledore?
The curse in his hand.
Okay. We're going to see in a memory in the next book, Snape's going to tell them, yeah, you got a little while, how long? I don't know, several months into the term. Okay. So Harry gets back, Harry and Dumbledore get back, and we see the attack we see Dumbledore tell Malfoy that he has Malfoy in his mercy, that Malfoy is in his power. Okay. But what happens just before that? Why is the film completely idiotic? I do remember this part. What does Dumbledore do to Harry?
He
Puts him under the impedimenta curse charm, whatever you want to call it. But it's a petrificus because the impedimenta just stops you from walking. Body bind, right? So he can't do what? He can't speak and he can't do anything. What do they do in the film?
Stay here, Harry.
Stay here, and then
Oh, and then Snape comes up. And
Snape comes up and does what?
tells him,
Oh yeah. It's like,
Really?
Harry's like, okay.
Really? After Harry knows what about Snape at that point? He's the one who told Voldemort the prophecy. It's because of him my parents are dead. And you think he's really going to stop him from blasting his sorry you-know-what off that tower? That is utterly ridiculous. Okay? So, what are Dumbledore's final words? Severus, please. Severus, please. And with a look of revulsion, Avada Kedavra. Now, when this book first came out, there was all kinds of speculation online because of how Dumbledore dies. He gets Avada Kedavra, right? What happened to Cedric when he was Avada Kedavra?
He just popped down.
Yeah.
Dumbledore gets blown off the tower.
I mean, great special effects. He hits that trampoline, and,
Hardcore.
right? That's not what happens. Avada Kedavra, you spread eagle and you're on the ground. The eyes are open. That's it. Dumbledore, a little flourish, I guess, So that a lot of people were speculating, maybe he's not really dead because this isn't what really happens. Well, what else? They go and find his body and he's got blood trickling from his mouth. Well, nobody else is ever Avada Kedavra. Do you see any blood?
They actually do. They made a point of saying it doesn't leave a mark at all.
Exactly. So why is he bleeding? Because dead men don't bleed.
Right. So, unless you're dead from the fall.
Bit his tongue.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
That's
that
the
he
only.
should've
So
been
there was
dead.
all kinds of speculation that he's not really dead.
Oh my
This
gosh.
is all part of an act. Until we get to book 7, and we got the white tomb and the cold dead hands, and he's dead, folks. He's really dead. He's not mostly dead. He's not coming back. Okay, so Harry goes after Snape. He tries to use Snape's curses on himself, and we find out Snape is the Half-Blood Prince. And he tells Snape to close. Snape tells him to close his mind. Notice, what does Snape never do when Harry is chasing him and cursing him and stuff?
He never counterattacks.
He never
Counterattack.
counterattacks. He does what? He parries the spells, but he never attacks. Why not? No. We're to save him for the Dark Lord, but they don't take him. They don't knock him out. Take him off with them. Pretty good question. So that later on, they're all sitting around talking about Snape. We see Lupin and Tonks, finally reveal their love. Skip all that. What page is it? In the chapter, The Phoenix Lament. Really? Does it have to be that loud? Good Lord, how deaf are they over there? Somewhere around... Six, not 6:30. Yeah, maybe it is that chapter. Trying to find the place. Oh, there it is. It's in the chapter of the White Tomb around Nope, sorry, it's not there either. Where is that passage? It's not Flight of the Prince. It's when Harry is sitting around and talking with... Oh, there it is. Around 6:15. Snape tells them. Harry tells them. As the Phoenix starts singing, Snape killed Dumbledore. McGonagall stares at him. And she says, Snape, we all wondered, but he trusted, always. Snape, I can't believe it. Lupin, Snape was a highly accomplished occlumens. Notice how quickly Lupin is to accept that Snape did this. I always thought Dumbledore must know something. McGonagall, he always hinted there. He had an ironclad reason. Dumbledore told me explicitly Snape's repentance was absolutely genuine. Tonks, I'd love to know what Snape told him. Harry, I know. Snape passed Voldemort the information that made Voldemort hunt down my mom and dad. Notice, how much of the information does Harry have? He's got some of it. He's in the exact same position Voldemort was with the prophecy. He heard some of it. He didn't hear all of it. He didn't hear Paul Harvey's the rest of the story. Okay? Notice how quickly the quote-unquote good guys are to accept that Snape is bad / evil. Is it hard for them? No. Why not? They want to believe it. Okay? Notice Lupin or Arthur Weasley or nor anybody else says, you know, Harry, why didn't Severus try to kill you when you chased him? Why did he use Sectum Sempra on you? That'd have been good. Why didn't he blast your ear off like we're going to see happen to George in the next book? Why didn't he take you to the dark? Why are you here, Harry? None of them asked that question. Okay? Even when this came out, I don't know if you had this experience, I was like, there's something wrong with this picture. There's something doesn't fit right. So we get to the end, we have the burial and all that kind of stuff. And Harry says, I'm not coming back to school. Hermione, yeah, we knew. Think I'm going to go to Godric's Hollow. I mean, after all, that's where it all begins, right? It's where I was born. Let's follow the life of Harry Potter. Ron, then what? Well, then I got to find the rest of the Horcruxes. And Ron says, yeah, we'll be there with you, Harry. Side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Use all those old stale metaphors, you know. No, says Harry. Hermione, Harry, we're going to be with you. Okay? So what else does he do? Jenny, sorry, we can't. It's over between us. You know. Why? Because he's been watching Spider-Man or something.
Yeah.
Why really? I mean, he tells her this in the next book, but why really? Voldemort will use you to get at me. Really? So pretending that you don't care for her anymore is going to make Voldemort go, darn, he doesn't like her anymore. I can't use her against him. Shoot, he's a smart one, that Harry Potter. Never would have thought of that. I mean, that's pretty lame.
It's no secret that he is very close with the Weasleys, so he would use them against them.
Go
anyway.
capture the whole family, you know. Take them all and slowly kill them and torture them, you know.
But it's the only thing that Harry can do.
He thinks. Yeah.
It's the most he can do to protect her. in his mind.
Because he can't do what? He can't shield her.
He can't take her with him.
He can't take her with him because that would just be awkward in many ways. Okay. And he can't really do what else? Who did Dumbledore tell Harry he could trust? Ron and Hermione. He can't tell her. Why? Telling her puts her in danger. It's okay to put Ron and Hermione in danger.
Yeah, they've
They're
been
vets.
Why? Well, next book. What does Dumbledore give away just a little bit? It's actually not giving anything away. What does Dumbledore know about Ron? He knows he's going to do what he's going to do, but he also knows he will undo that. Ron's not a fair weather friend per se, but Ron's got issues, and Ron's got to work through those issues, and he will. Okay, we'll stop there. I don't know how we ended that up early, because I skipped an awful lot that I don't normally skip. Let's do a